And my roommate and I got up that morning and I took the test and she went in and read it. And she was like, oh, I mean, I kind of already knew, but that was the reality that all of a sudden hit me. Like, what in the world am I going to do? It was a lot. I mean, I was scared to death. How am I going to do this? Well, my dad was a yo-yo the whole time during my pregnancy. There would be days where he was going to support me and he was going to be there for me. And then there were other days where he was mad and I was going to give this baby up for adoption.
Not knowing how he was going to be supportive or what that was going to look like. And it really makes you feel rejected.
He has determined that I should give my baby up for adoption. And so I left there just devastated.
Whether parenting, adoption, or abortion, those all have lifelong effects. It is not a quick and easy fix. At 20 years old, while attending Auburn University, her life changed unexpectedly, forcing her to navigate fear, shame, rejection, and uncertainty largely on her own. In today's episode, Sharon shares the pain of losing support from the people she needed the most, the judgment she faced carrying a biracial baby in a small southern town, and the unexpected friends who stepped in to carry her through. From dropping out of school and working full-time to eventually returning to college as a single mom and graduating magna cum laude, her story is one of resilience and determination. Today, she hopes her story can be a source of hope for women walking through the same fears and uncertainty she once had to face. This conversation is a reminder that difficult circumstances do not determine the outcome of someone's life. Hey, if you're loving the stories you're hearing, there are 2 easy ways you can support us. First, consider becoming a donor by leaving a tax-deductible donation through clicking the link in our show notes. Every gift, big or small, helps student moms feel empowered to have both their education and their baby. Second, drop us a 5-star review. It's totally free and makes a huge difference in getting these stories out to more people. Without further ado, let's welcome Sharon to Unplanned and Untold. Sharon, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast this morning.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm excited.
I am so excited to have you. Your story is full of so many ups and downs and so many good gold little nuggets. I can't wait to dive right on in.
Good.
I love to start episodes out by asking a little bit about how you were raised, your family life, because a lot of times the way that we were raised kind of brings us into adulthood. It sets that foundation. So could you tell our listeners a little bit about what your family was like?
Yeah, I mean, I was really lucky, really blessed. I grew up in a 2-parent home. Dad worked. Mom was a stay-at-home mom, raised in a Baptist church, Southern Baptist. So my dad was really strict. Both my parents were strict. My dad was the disciplinarian. But I mean, I had a good household, lots of fun family memories, went on trips, grandparents all involved. And so had one brother that was older than me, very protective.
Yeah.
Had kind of like an adopted brother, somebody that my parents kind of took and still talk to him now. And he was very protective. So I was real protective, but I had a great family life growing up.
Beautiful. So was going to college always part of the picture?
Oh, yeah. It wasn't, are you going to college? It was, where are you going to college? And so my brother had gone to Auburn University. And when I went with him to visit, I fell in love. And I was like, well, I was an Auburn fan already. So then I was like, oh, there wasn't even a question about where at that point either. Yeah.
I love that. So take us back to college days before you found out you were unexpectedly pregnant. What was college life like for you? Because it's different for everybody.
Yeah. I mean, it was fun. My parents were always really strict, had an early curfew, all that kind of stuff. So it was kind of fun having that freedom. I wasn't a party girl. I didn't drink or anything like that. It was just kind of fun being able to hang out with friends and come in when I wanted to. And, I was trying to figure out the studying because my parents were always on me and now I'm having to kind of push myself. But I had a really, really good group of friends. I kind of grew up a tomboy. So a lot of my friends were boys. In fact, when we went to do a baby shower for me, we were like, oh God, who are we going to invite? Because so many of my friends were guys or whatever. But it played a huge role eventually when I did get pregnant because they really came forward for me. But I mean, I had fun. I had the same roommate pretty much from the beginning. So when I found I was pregnant, she's the one that did the pregnancy test for me. So it was, it was just fun. I loved Auburn, loved football. So yeah.
Do you remember the day that you found out you were pregnant?
At 1,000%.
Take us through that memory.
Okay. Well, I had been dating the father of my child for a while, and he went and got the pregnancy test on Sunday because I started thinking there's some things going on that seemed different, and I was a little late or whatever. But anyway, so he went and got the pregnancy test on Sunday, and it said you had to take it Monday morning. And I was like, oh. So I told him to stay. He had already graduated from Auburn and was working. So he stayed home, and my roommate and I got up that morning and I took the test, and she went in and read it, and she was like, oh, and so that's when I found out. So it was just like, oh my gosh, because I came from such a strict background. So it was sheer panic, honestly. I mean, it was scary. I mean, I kind of already knew, but that was the reality that all of a sudden hit me, like, what in the world am I going to do? So, yeah, so I remember it clearly. And I ended up going over to his house, and he took the day off, and we spent that together, just honestly kind of trying not to think about it, just watching TV and trying to, put off the inevitable of the conversation at some point.
Yeah. So knowing you are coming from a stricter home, that had to be terrifying, thinking about how you were going to tell your parents. What was going through your head, and how did you tell them?
A lot was going through my head because the father of my child, African American, he's Black. And so my dad had already found out about that. And I grew up in a home where we didn't have any prejudice. We didn't have any racism. Had I ever even shown any signs of that, language of that, or anything, which obviously wasn't inside of me, but I would have gotten in trouble for that, and but I think my dad grew up in a really southern part of Alabama where it was kind of behind the times on things. And fortunately, he was a bad boy. He got kicked out of the public school system and had to go to Georgia. And there he had met a bunch of Cubans, a lot of wealthy Cubans had sent their students over there. So it kind of got him away from the stigma of just country white people. Yes. But there was that stigma of fear. And I really think that my dad's reaction to it was just fear. I mean, he was thinking about how he grew up, and he and my mom grew up in the civil rights movement during the 60s. So there was a level of fear for his daughter, So that already I knew he was not excited about the fact that I was dating interracially. And I had told him that we had broken up, so now I've got to tell him I'm pregnant, And so it was a lot. I mean, I was scared to death. How am I going to do this? And my college roommate was saying, wait till 3 months because anything can happen in that first trimester, which I didn't want anything to happen. But yeah, it was trying to decide which direction I was going to go. I mean, obviously you face the decision of an abortion or whatever you're going to do, but I knew personally I couldn't do that. There was just no way. And I had told Devin when I was talking to her, the girl that I first talked to, it was crazy because I went in on my bed, because I was sad, I was scared and everything. And I laid down in this song. I was trying to find a sappy song, how we are as girls. I just wanted to hear something, cry and that kind of thing. And this song came on that was written about someone being pregnant and not knowing what to do. It was by Pat Boone. You probably never heard of him. His daughter was Debbie Boone. But anyway, it was called Let Me Live, Let Me Walk into the Sunshine, Let Me Live, Let Me Feel My Father's Arms Around Me, My Mother's Love Surround Me. So, and I had the radio like laying on my stomach as I was listening to it. It was almost like my
divine intervention.
Was saying, come on, And so I knew then that there was no way I was going to be able to make that decision. So
how do you tell mom and dad?
How do I tell mom and dad? I know I knew. Luckily, I told my brother first. My brother came to see me in January. So this was like November that I found out. And by January, I was about 3 months along. And so my brother came to see me one weekend, and I said, I have something to tell you. And he was like, you've gotten married. And I said, no, not that. Because by this time, I wasn't hearing from my son's dad anymore. So I definitely wasn't married.
No.
And so luckily, my brother did come through for me then. He said, I don't want you to go home and do this alone. He said, I think mom and I had not told my mother yet, though. He said, I think mom and I should tell dad.
Okay.
So that's what happened. I went home the following weekend, and I don't know if I'm jumping ahead, but I went home.
Good?
Okay, good. I went home the following weekend. Moms just have that intuition. And
I know.
Yeah, mother was asking me questions that I was like, she was like, when was your last period? And I was like, oh, yeah. I was like, wait, I've practiced my speech. This isn't the time yet. We're in Walmart trying to get stuff that I need to go back. And so when we were on our way home, I pulled over at a park that was in our neighborhood. And I told her, and she was like, oh my God. And I said, but that's why Jerry's here this weekend, because he'd already finished Auburn and was working in Birmingham. I lived in a town called Gadsden at the time. And so I said, Jerry thinks that you and him should tell Dad after I leave. And she said, I think that's a very good idea. So that's what they did. They told my dad. But then my dad called me that night, very angry, very upset. And he said, you owe me face to face. So I had to go to my classes next morning and drive back 2 hours to my hometown to have a face to face with my dad. So
I
yeah.
can't imagine what you were feeling during that 2 hour drive back to see your dad. I
No,
mean, were you replaying how this conversation was going to go face to face with him?
well, it's so funny. My best friend forever, and she recently passed away a few years ago from cancer, but she said until she died, she was like, I will always feel so bad because she goes, here you, the most time you need to me the most, I fell asleep the whole way home. And she said, you needed me to talk to. And I said, well, maybe that's how it was meant to be for me, just to kind of oh yeah, I was a nervous wreck. I mean, but maybe I just needed to be quiet and listen and just kind of get my thoughts together or whatever. So it was a long trip back waiting to hear. And then that phone rang and I was like, oh, this is it, And so it was, and he was definitely upset or whatever. So
how did your conversation go with him?
well, my dad was a yo-yo the whole time during my pregnancy. There would be days where he was going to support me and he was going to be there for me. And then there were other days where he was mad and I was going to give this baby up for adoption. And so it was literally day by day. You knew what you couldn't, what, and I didn't know what I was going to get until I started showing. And once I started showing, the plan was, because when I went home that day, he was upset. We talked. He was angry. But then the next morning when I woke up to drive back to Auburn for my classes, he said, Sharon, we're going to be beside you every step of the way. We're going to do this. We're going to figure this out. So I went back feeling like, okay, we're going to be here. But that changed. And he was like, once spring break gets here, because Auburn was in quarters then. So when March got here, the quarter was over and you'd start again in April. He goes, just go ahead and drop out of school. Come home so you can be here for all your doctor's appointments. But it was when I came home for spring break that I started showing and he just exploded. He could not take it. So I went back to Auburn. Of course, I'd not signed up for any classes. So I got a job working 40 hours a week at that point. So my last quarter was just me working and saving money because I didn't know what the future held. I had no clue.
At that point, what was the relationship like between you and the father of your child?
Well, it's funny because right before spring break, he kind of started coming around again.
Okay.
He wouldn't tell his parents. Which is crazy because they lived there and when they were in education, they were very high educated. They both had their doctorates and everything. And but he wouldn't tell his parents. And but right before spring break, he kind of started coming around. And I think that was his way of, okay, let me be the good guy. I will be here for her. And then I'm going to send her on her merry way because she's going back to Birmingham and living there.
Right.
Out of sight, out of mind. But then I came back, so, and then I just never really heard from him. I mean, every blue moon, his sister went to Alabama and when she would come home, she would call me and want to come over and find out what was going on. And I never let her know that he wasn't coming around, I knew she thought a lot of him and I didn't want to let her down. I wanted her to, and she was sweet. I mean, she always came and she was fantastic, but I didn't hear from him. So it was a hard time because I felt like the two most important men in my life were really having nothing to do with me. My dad had stuff to do with me, but it was a lot of, and then the father of my child, I'd go 6 weeks before I would hear anything from him. So it was a lot going back and forth to my doctor's appointments and that kind of thing.
It's a very isolating place to be because I can relate 100%, not having the father of the baby in the picture and my own father, not knowing how he was going to be supportive or what that was going to look like. And it really makes you feel rejected in a sense. Did you feel that? Did you feel like the isolation and rejection during that time was pretty strong?
Oh man, I just remember, and even now, like I love going back to Auburn. It's like gives me goosebumps. It's just my place. But for those 3 or 4 months, it was so depressing being there because I would be in my apartment. I would get up in the morning, drive to work, and just having that time to myself was so. I mean, that's why I love baby steps because there's, you at least kind of have help. Then it was just so, I knew my cousin who was in med school was setting it up so I could come live with her parents in Huntsville, Alabama. And so thankfully I had her and I had a great set of friends. But I think at whatever age you are, you want your parents there, and my mom was old school and she was there, but she's also going to fall in line with what my dad wants, and everything. So, and they were wanting me to go see all these different people and, talk to them about adoption. And the greatest thing that ever happened was they this counselor that they always knew. He was a Christian counselor in Birmingham. And so they wanted me to come talk to him with them. And my dad's all business type, like, what am I legally supposed to do? But anyway, Bob starts talking to me, the counselor, and he has determined that I should give my baby up for adoption.
Okay.
And so I left there just devastated. Dad was happy as lark. He thought, this is it. We're going to give the baby up for adoption, and he thought I should give it up to a black family. And which, I thought that was funny that he thought, of course, the times were different then. But anyway, I was just like, just the whole concept that everybody had decided that adoption was it. And, when you're carrying your child, you're already bonded with that baby.
Different.
And I think it's great, but it just wasn't me. And so this was what was amazing. When I came home, one of my guy friends said, look, I'm going to Atlanta to do an interview at the Atlanta airport. Why don't you ride with me? I'll drop you at the mall while I'm doing my interview. It'll get your mind off things. So that was precious that he did that. Came home, went to bed that night, and the next morning my phone rang, and it was my mom and dad, and they were like, you're not going to believe what happened. I was like, what? And they said, Bob called this morning, the counselor, and he said, I want y'all to know that never in my life have I ever given counseling and second guessed it. He said, but I did not sleep a wink last night. And he said, I really felt like I gave her the wrong advice. She's going to be 21. She's together. She's sharp. I feel like she can do this. He said, I think she should keep her baby. And I just started crying because I was like, and so him telling my parents that was just one of those days that my dad was like, okay, it's confirmed. We're going to keep the baby. Of course, he changed his mind several other times. But that day, it felt so good. It felt like, yes, I was making the right decision because I knew I wasn't going along with what they said, but I didn't know how I was going to handle it, because I knew if I was not going to give my baby up for adoption, there wasn't going to be the support. I knew mom would be there, but like I said, she kind of fell in line with what dad had to say or whatever. So
yeah, one of the biggest discussions or hot topics with unplanned pregnancies is the decision of what you're going to do. And I think one of the biggest misconceptions is that abortion and adoption are these quick fixes and an easy way out of the problem. Because they're not. Like, no matter which choice you make, whether parenting, adoption, or abortion, those all have lifelong effects. It is not a quick and easy fix. And I definitely felt that pressure as well of people being like, just place the baby for adoption, like move on. It doesn't quite work like that, especially when you feel that baby inside of you. You have that bond that you just automatically want to care for this child. And especially when everybody else has turned their backs, like knowing your father and the father of the baby have somewhat rejected you. It's like that one piece that you're holding on to still. And within all your heart, you could do this. You can actually do it.
Right. You did not for sure how, but you know that you've got the strength to do it. Yeah.
Exactly. What was it like being pregnant on a college campus for you?
Well, I felt like I was hiding, luckily where I worked was like 20 minutes away and I had to be there like at, I think 7 a.m. So I got up every morning and left at 6:30 and I'd come back into work. But like, I know I would want to go walk because, walking's great for you when you're pregnant. And I would go like, it was kind of cold and I would go to the Coliseum and I was like, which is our basketball arena or whatever. Yeah. And I would like, if I saw, it's such a big campus, but every once in a while I would see someone and be like, and then the people that lived in my apartment building, I was on the 3rd floor. So I could, every once in a while, they'd be like, or my roommate would say, they stopped and said, is Sharon pregnant? She was like, duh, because I'm short. So I was ginormous, and so, but they were even, I didn't ever talk to them, but none of them were really, they weren't ugly about it or anything. But the biggest thing was kind of hiding from people from my hometown. I guess I didn't want any of them to know. And so, which is wild, but that's just kind of how it was then. There was such a stigma and stuff. And so it was lonely, but I will tell you this, that, I told you I had a bunch of guy friends and I literally would walk in every day from work and my phone would be ringing. And my friend Tim would say, hey, I've got dinner cooked for you. Come over here in just a little bit. And he would just go pick up a rotisserie chicken and make little sides. And then my friend Andy would call and say, hey, where do you want to go eat? I'm going to take you out to eat. My friend, I had so many of my male friends, which really helped me since I felt like the 2 men in my life that were kind of, rejecting me at that point in time, that they were so good. And I think I sent y'all a picture of me at my 21st birthday party because I turned 21 while I was pregnant. And they gave me a surprise birthday party because they were trying to cheer me up. And And so it was just really cute. I have one of my friends, Tim, I'm still real close to him, and he sent me a picture of the two of us. And he said, hey, I have a picture of you when you're pregnant. I said, you do? And he said, yeah, Russell's holding a sign above my head that says Daddy. And he didn't know what I was needing the pictures for. And I said, well, I'll crop you out. He goes, let me get this straight. You want a picture of the two of us together, but you're going to crop me out? I go, unless you can be claimed as the dad. And he goes, oh, I didn't know what this was about. And I said, yeah. But anyway, so it was cute. They were trying to just be there for me and that kind of stuff. So I had a good support as far as my friends go. But, they're all in college. How are they going to support me financially and house me? And all that kind of stuff. So that was kind of unsure or whatever. So it was scary.
That's a lot to process. Even with friends, it's still a lot to process on what is life going to look like, especially knowing that you're going to have to do it on your own without the help of the child's father. What characteristics do you feel like helped you push through those difficult times?
Well, it's kind of funny. I do feel like I was just kind of a happy-go-lucky person at the time that probably wasn't the most responsible person. Like I said, I wasn't a party animal or anything like that. So I didn't have this thing where I have to go out. That wasn't a part of me. But I guess it is funny how all of a sudden you find strength inside of you. And it really kind of turned me around to kind of hone in on that strength or whatever. So I just was bound and determined that I could prove everyone. It was almost like if I heard somebody from my old hometown that found out, like somebody's parent, they'd be like, oh, Sharon can't raise a child. I'd be like, yes, I can. Like I was like, I can do this somehow. And I kept focusing on it. And I don't know why, but I kept focusing on 2 years from now. Okay. What's life going to look like 2 years from now? 2 years from now, I'm already going to kind of know, I already have my job. I would have, started figuring this out no matter how hard it is. I'd already, since I was working 40 hours a week instead of going to college, I was already putting everything in the bank, saving money, just kind of preparing for that. And my mom raised me to be frugal. She didn't have to be frugal, but she was raised in a family that didn't have a lot of money. My dad made pretty good money, and so she could have spent, but she clipped coupons. So, I was raised to be frugal, so I knew I could. My college roommate said, why don't you go ahead and start, because baby food lasts a long time. Every time you go to the grocery store, since you're still kind of on your parents' dime, buy 5 things of baby food, buy a thing of this. So I'd already started kind of stocking up, trying to do stuff like that. So I think just being raised to be strong. My dad, as hard as he was on me, and once everything kind of turned around, I really appreciated him being tough, because it made me get in that tough mindset to go, first of all, let me show him that I can do this. Yes. Second of all, let me go ahead and start putting that wisdom that I've learned all my life.
That's the silver lining. When you are raised with pretty strict parents and fathers that really want the best for you and want you and teach you how to figure it out. It was my biggest gripe growing up is like, I would go to my dad and I would say, how do I spell this word? And he'd say, go get the dictionary and start sounding it out. It was always, I'm not going to fish for you. I'm going to teach you how to fish. And that was very frustrating to me growing up, but I wouldn't take it back for anything in the world, because after having my unplanned pregnancy, I knew how to fend for myself. I knew how to figure things out. And that is one of those blessings that comes from having a stricter father and a stricter home.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And who would have known? Like you said, it was aggravating at the time. But, and I look back, as he was angry and he was mad and he came down on me so hard. But man, it made all the difference in the world, because it made me rise to the occasion just to say, I can do this, and I did prove it to him. And so it helped him gain respect. And I had some of my guy friends that wrote my dad while I was pregnant, said, I know you're upset with Sharon, but I've always respected her, but I now respect her more than I ever did before. So it almost like wanted to make him mad, but it also, I knew him that deep down inside, it meant something to him, It just meant a lot.
Guy friends. Oh my God.
They were amazing. They were definitely a godsend, because they helped me get through so much.
Yes. So what makes you eventually go back to school?
Well, I left, and my parents moved from my hometown to Birmingham in the midst of me being pregnant. And so eventually, I went to live with my aunt and uncle for a week. And then that's a whole story too, my dad coming. But I worked at a bank in an auditing department as the secretary, and all the auditors were kind of my age. And so they all had college degrees, and it just made me want to get my college degree, to be one of them to be kind of on that equal plane. Because like I said, I was raised in a family where education was super important. Both my parents met in college. My brother, everybody in my family had college degrees. And so it just was important. So when my son was like about 3, I just started really kind of going through it and went to my dad and I said, look, I've saved $6,000. I said, when I get to 10,000, I want to go back and finish my degree. I said, and he goes, why can't you do it now? And I said, well, I got, because I was trying to, I really wanted to do it on my own. And he said, well, and he was at a point where he was about to have to hire a secretary.
Okay.
Part-time. And he said, why don't you work for me? Which, listen, is hard.
Oh, I can't imagine.
He was like, why don't you work for me? And he said, there'll be downtime for you in my office where you're just answering the phone. You have to put all my packets together because he was an agency manager with State Farm. But anyway, he said you could, during that downtime, you can, study. And so I was like, okay. So I did. I went back. But in my first year, I went to a junior college just trying to see if I could do it. Right. And then I went back full time and thought, why not be a teacher? It's funny that I kind of went into it. I tell people in my career, I went into it for all the wrong reasons. I thought, great schedule for a single mom, but it ended up being my thing. Like it was definitely, I landed where I was supposed to land. So I ended up getting a Pell Grant, which paid for my school after that first year and everything. So I didn't have to take a lot of classes because I changed my major and everything. But that's what I just wanted to have a good schedule, being a single mom and working. And once you work in the work field, you're like, where's summer? You don't have a summer anymore.
No.
So I craved being a teacher,
Absolutely. So graduation day, it's one of the highlights of the conversations we get to have on this podcast because it wasn't handed to us. It's hard enough to graduate from college, but to do it as a single mom, working, studying, taking care of a child, what were the feelings you were experiencing on that day?
Oh God, just absolute pride because I did a lot better when I went back to school. I was a lot more mature. I had a definitely bigger goal then. And I think with less time on your hand, you take advantage of every moment. So when I was in between classes, I was studying and working because I was taking 5 classes, working about 30 to 35 hours. And I didn't want to take away from my time for him. So I would keep him up to like 10, put him down, and then start studying, So it was like, I think about my 20s and it's like kind of a blur, but it was something I was so proud of. I graduated magna cum laude. Wow. It was just a sense of huge pride, because I did it, I just felt so accomplished or whatever. So it was, I thought, God, you've brought me so far. Who would have ever thought, and by that time, Chase was like, I guess he was about 6 when I finally finished. So it was cool having him see me and all that kind of stuff, So it was a moment of pride for sure.
And that's a memory that he will have. At that age, they start keeping those memories, those core memories are there. And what a beautiful example for you to be able to show him. Listen, if you've got a dream, even if all odds are against you, chase it down because it's possible.
That's what I told him because he went through some struggles in his life. And I said, Chase, if you think about it, I said, I didn't start teaching until I was 29. There was a shortage of teachers in Alabama and I needed to find a job in Alabama because that's where my parents were. So if my son got sick, I could bring him to their house or whatever. Right. And so it took a while. So I didn't start my career until I was 29. I said, now look at me. He goes, God, that is hard to think of. I said, so starting your career later and, everybody thinks you go to school, you finish at age 22 and then you start your career. I said, that didn't happen for me. I said, but I have a great career now. And so it also helped him to see that as he got older, that it's never too late to really jump in and, make something of yourself. So that was also really good.
And, unplanned pregnancies, this topic is still very taboo. You won't find many podcasts talking about this. It's not really a common conversation. What are your hopes for the future when it comes to conversations surrounding unplanned pregnancies?
Well, I've heard some girls say, they'll talk about some girl getting pregnant. I'm like, well, you can't say you believe a certain way and then not support someone.
Right.
It's having a baby, like be there for whatever, be there for them or whatever and help them through it or whatever. And so I just, love on them because listen, there's a lot of people that could be in that same position, that could say this could have truly happened to me. It's almost like you got caught, and, so everyone knows about it. Right, exactly. And I'm like, just love on these people and help them and see what you can do for them because it did take, because at the time where, my dad wasn't there, I had my friends that, filled in the gaps for me, And so I just love when I found out about baby steps. I mean, I was like, it was like to help those girls be able to continue their education and feel at ease leaving your child so you could go study and you could better your life for them, So I just think having support makes all the difference in the world because there's so much uncertainty and so much fear and you don't know which direction you're going to be pulled towards or whatever. So I just wish people would, even if you're against it or whatever, you think, oh, they shouldn't have got pregnant. They are. There's a baby involved. Of all things, if you want to think about the woman, think about the baby. But I think you should also love on the woman too because she's made a really tough decision, and so help her as well, be there for her.
I agree. So if you could go back in time and go face to face with your younger self, just finding out she's pregnant, what would you say to that 20-year-old girl?
Yeah, I think about that a lot sometimes. And sometimes I'll think about different things that happened during that pregnancy and how scared I was. And I almost, you kind of cry for that young girl. I mean, I feel for her because I was so scared and I didn't know how things were going to turn off. I think I would just say, stay the course, be strong like you're doing. You're doing great. You're going to figure this out. You've got, God's going to help you through this. You've made some good choices. You're working hard. Just be proud of yourself, stay the course, and try not to be so scared. And I was so glad that I kept focusing on the future, even if it was just 2 years,
Bite-sized pieces. I love that advice. Bite size.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, take it a little bit at a time. You're right. But you got this. You got this. You know who you are, so I hope every moments that way.
Exactly. In those moments, I always see myself like looking at a tree. You're in a forest, but all you can see is that tree in front of you. But eventually you'll be able to see the entire picture, the full forest. And it's a beautiful place, truly. You can get past seeing that one obstacle right in front of you. Your life is not over by any stretch.
Mm-hmm. That's funny that you said that because I was like, yeah, baby steps. And I thought, hey, wait a minute. Ding, 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 ding. Yeah, like it is. I mean, it is those baby steps, but each day, I remember every week I got a paycheck for working those 40 hours and I worked in the middle of nowhere with all these country guys that were foresters, and so, but every week when that paycheck came in, putting it in the bank, planning for whatever came my way and already looking at consignment stores for babies thinking, okay, if this is where I got to go here, then that's okay. There's cute stuff here too. You can make it work, you can do it. There's a strength inside of you. Yeah.
When you look at your child today, how old is Chase now?
He'll be 38 in July. Yeah.
Goodness. What do you hope that he understands about your situation and what it took for you to get where you are today?
I have a great relationship with him. We went through a huge journey, a journey that I never thought we would go on. He struggled with not having his dad in his life for a long time. And that's tough for a boy, but it's also made him stand up as a dad. It's made him be this incredible dad. He saw a strong work ethic in me. He saw a strong faith in me. He saw that I wasn't going to leave his side no matter what, and that, I think that just has brought us closer. And it was even just like maybe a couple years ago where we really sat down and even had another conversation about what kind of took place and what kind of happened or whatever. And I think I know he admires me for that, and I think I'm sure he makes parenting decisions, how he's going to do things maybe a little differently than me. But that's what given maybe more sugar than I should to my grandkids or whatever. But you know what I'm saying? But I think he has that same strength inside of him. I used to always pray when I was pregnant with him, please let him have my confidence. Because I was always a confident person.
I love that.
And sometimes I thought I created a monster when he was little and he was always looking at himself in the mirror. I was like, oh Lord, what have I done? But I don't think that there's a bond that could be closer than what I have with him. I just went and saw the Michael Jackson movie with he and his wife and we were in there dancing together, So, we're just super close. And I think all of that, everything that I went through then and what we went through, in his life, he's an incredible, incredible man who loves his family and works hard. So it's just like full circle, you just kind of see it and you're like, thank you, God, for all of this turning out this way. It's just really awesome,
Well, Sharon, your story is so, so beautiful. And I know it's going to reach all the right people and impact many. And just thank you so much for being so vulnerable and taking the time to talk about a subject that's not talked about much, helping us break down the stigma surrounding unplanned pregnancies.
Right. Well, I appreciate y'all having this platform, having the thing to help these girls, to keep going on in their life and see that they can do it and help them reach their potential. So I really appreciate that as well.
Absolutely.
But thank you for having me.
Thank you. And for all of our listeners, we hope to have you back for our next episode of Unplanned and Untold. Bye-bye. Unplanned and Untold drops new episodes every other Wednesday. We're available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe and give us a 5-star review if you love this episode. I'm Caitlin Willing, and this is Unplanned and Untold.